You're now listening to the Palmetto Dugout Show, hosted by State Director Sammy Esposito, Associate Scouts Drew Stewart and Sean Smith, that discuss all things related to amateur baseball in South Carolina. Here are your hosts.
Welcome into episode 69, Coach Espo's favorite of the Palmetto Dugout Show. This was a little special. We got Coach Miley with the Gamecocks. What's going on, Coach?
How we doing today, guys?
Fantastic, Espo.
We're rolling over here. You know, I got a text this morning at I think it was like 8:30 that Coach Stewie had already off to a tough day and had one of his kids say a few choice words to him this morning in the classroom. So
Wow.
I think at this point in time we're a better start right now or finishing the day better than what you started. So
little adversity for Coach Stewart in the new year.
7:45 a.m. Welcome to school.
Yeah, let's go. Kick off the new year with a bang.
Only one way to get this thing going.
There you go. Can't make them take a lap. Hey, you're out of here. Take a lap.
I probably would have got some more words then. I'll let Coach Espo roll with this one.
Yeah, we're Coach Lee. We're fired up to have you on here. Talk some baseball in the great state of South Carolina, and I know a lot of our fans out there, the people that follow baseball in the state, know plenty about Coach Lee and your background, right? You've we'll kind of let you get in there and roll with it and kind of tell us a little bit about yourself for people that don't know. But your life of baseball has really been spent 99% of your life here in South Carolina, excluding a little bit of pro ball, right?
That's about the only time, really, my playing career is really the only time that took me away from the state of South Carolina. And that was in, just the 2 years. I played 2 years of minor league baseball. Besides that, both my mom and dad are from South Carolina. All of my relatives are from South Carolina. Grew up in the state. Went to high school at Lugoff-Elgin High School. Went to the College of Charleston, played my college baseball there. And fortunately, Tim Wallace at Spartanburg Methodist gave me an opportunity to coach there in 2001, did 2 years there, then went to work for Coach Tanner at South Carolina for 6 years and got a chance to be a head coach at 31 years old at the College of Charleston, my alma mater, for 7 years, and then 7 years at Clemson. And now I'm getting ready to start my second year back at South Carolina. So, my whole coaching career has been right here in South Carolina, and it's been a very special thing to me personally, just because my family is from here, and just to be able to coach my whole career in my home state has been something that I'm very grateful to have been able to do.
Yeah, obviously an oddity in today's day and age to be able to stay in one area as long as you have, which makes it special. And me and Drew always joke around, and I think we tweet all the time, or we added on to a lot of our tweets. We'll go little old South Carolina because people kind of tend to forget and overlook, especially from a baseball standpoint, the talent and you're right, like the high school talent, the college talent, the depth across the state. We just kind of get overlooked. But yourself, you've been here, you've lived it, you grew up in it, and coaching and recruiting it. So it for us to get out there and be able to try to get the name out across the country is neat to kind of give the love. But you've been doing it for a long time and did it yourself at the high school age and continue recruiting it.
Yeah, I think South Carolina, from a recruiting standpoint, and look, I've recruited kids from other states, but I haven't worked in other states, so I don't know the dynamics of recruiting quite as much in other places. One of the things I'll say about South Carolina is, look, we all know that, look, there's years where there's more talent than others, but there's always really good talent in the state of South Carolina. South Carolina is a baseball state. People in South Carolina take a lot of pride in high school baseball and in college baseball here. One of our biggest selling points is we don't have any pro sports. The Gamecocks and the Tigers are the Yankees and Red Sox to the people of the state of South Carolina, and it's what makes baseball so special, and college sports in general so special to the people of South Carolina. Because our state is small in size and in population, we have a lot of really high quality college baseball programs in our state. Like, it's not the easiest place in the world to recruit, because it's easy to cover. You know who the players are, and everybody and their brother, because baseball is so special to the state, and the programs are so good at the college level. Everybody's going to recruit those kids. So, you have to be on point and make sure that you know who's coming up, who do you need to go see, who do you need to be in contact with, because, if you're not on top of your game from a recruiting standpoint, a kid will get plucked pretty dang quick in our state, just because college baseball means so much, and we have great resources when it comes to being able to identify talent in our state.
Well, and you talked about it too, how much the high school coaches, the love for the state and wanting to pub their guys. So they're also obviously calling you guys to let them know. And, you gotta make sure that, because the kids want to go to South Carolina. They want to go to Clemson. They want to go to these in-state schools because of the success. I mean, you got two teams in the state that have won national championships. So there's not many states that can say that one when you go that route. And obviously a lot of great programs across the board. So it makes it special for us to where, for us, when we can talk about players, right? You guys had a big recruit, Will Craddock, that we were able to get on there and do a neat little thing with his commitment on that we took down to the Futures game. When a kid like that blows up nationally, we've all known about him. You've known about him. The other coach has known about him, and they're going, oh, this kid's good. And then all of a sudden he gets on the national scene, and he's one of the better players in the country. But sometimes he can get overlooked and kind of get lost just because of, I think just the dynamics of the state sometimes, how it goes. It doesn't mean he's not any better or any worse than anybody else. It's just sometimes they get little old South Carolina gets lost in the shuffle sometimes, floating out there across the board. We're not Florida, we're not Georgia or whatever, Texas. So it makes it neat. Now, a couple of recruiting questions I want to kind of fire at. You kind of talked about recruiting a little bit. Now, one thing I do want to start with is, and it's still new, but the new recruiting rule that went into effect last spring. How has that been for you as a coach, as a recruiter, as a human being? What kind of lead us a little bit how that's changed with when you can talk and talk to those guys, and how's it been from your standpoint of what it's doing for the players?
Yeah, so basically, the new rule that came into effect, and it affected this recruiting cycle, starting in August. Starting August 1 was the first opportunity that we had to contact a junior in high school. Okay, prior to that, there was a little bit of a shift from the old rule to the new rule, but basically, we could not have we couldn't receive calls. We couldn't set up calls with kids who were freshmen or sophomores in high school anymore. Like, we couldn't have any kids call us anymore. We've never been able to call them or text them, but they could call us. That rule obviously went into effect, and instead of having to recruit, basically, we were recruiting 4 to 5 classes at a time, which made it very, very challenging when it came to taking calls, from recruits, because, a freshman or a sophomore in high school on, with the old rules, if they called us and we didn't take their call, we can't call them back. So, like, it just becomes an issue constantly with communication with recruits. So, you'd be recruiting next year's team through the transfer portal or junior college baseball. You'd be recruiting, the juniors in high school, the sophomores in high school, the freshmen in high school. I mean, it was just, and you couldn't keep up any sort of continuity as to, like, who's coming in, who's going out. Because we would get asked all the time, like, how many kids are you taking in this class? And what are you looking for in this class? I'm like, we're looking for everything, because we don't know who's coming and going, because we're recruiting so many guys at one time, so many classes at one time. I think what the new rule, basically, where you have to wait till August 1 of a kid's junior year to contact them. Once you contact them, you can text them, you can bring them on campus. That's when you can go full board with recruiting, is in August 1 of their junior year. But you cannot have any contact whatsoever with a kid up until then. So now we're recruiting 2 classes. Basically, we finished the 24 class. We're actively recruiting the 25 class. The 26s, the 27s, like, we can watch those kids and write their name down, but we can't have any sort of recruiting activity with them whatsoever. in my opinion, it's allowed those kids to just take some pressure off of them, just play baseball, develop, focus on development, right? Feel like that's an awful lot of pressure for a kid who's 14, 15 years old, playing in so many tournaments and showcases and events. And they're basically, getting recruited at that age. I can't imagine that, but I think that it's allowed those kids to just develop and play baseball without the pressure of being recruited. It's allowed us to just focus on 2 classes at a time. And it's made our lives, the quality of our lives, a lot better. Now if I'm, trying to set up a call, or I can just call a kid directly and I don't have to worry about, touching base with a high school coach. Hey, he called me. I missed his call. Have him call me, whenever he can call me. Like, we don't have to worry about those kind of things anymore. So I feel like the communication's better. I feel like the process is better. You're recruiting a more mature kid, physically, emotionally, mentally. It's tough for a guy my age to have a conversation with a 14-year-old sometimes. So I'll be honest, I kind of like the fact that we're not doing that anymore. And I can imagine, a 14-year-old kid getting on the phone with me, it probably wasn't the easiest thing in the world for them either. So I like it. I think all college coaches like it. And I think overall, probably the parents like it a lot better too, because it's made life a lot easier on both sides.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you take it into context, right? When you were 14 years old, eliminate a sport, you never think about where you're going to college.
No.
Now all of a sudden the kid's like, well, I'm going to get recruited. Like, what am I going to do? They don't know what they're going to do in the next hour, let alone where they're going to go to college, trying to figure that out. Yeah, it plus too, right? You talked about the communication thing. You might be talking to a recruit and, right, one calls you. In the past, if the kid was that age, you'd have to text the high school coach while you're talking to that guy. Hey, tell Billy Bob I missed his call. I'm not trying to blow him off. I'm on the phone. Now you could just shoot him a text, make life a little bit easier for you.
Right.
And the players themselves goes along.
Right.
They've also thrown another rule that I would assume probably helped you guys out this year: the Thanksgiving and Christmas, nothing. Yeah. Right. I mean, I would assume that's probably a nice thing when you're sitting there on Christmas Eve and you can spend time with your family, and you're not over there having to worry about everything else going on at the same time. And on the flip side, the same thing with the kids, right? They're not having to. They're over there opening up presents and talking to mom and dad about Merry Christmas, and not having to send Coach Lee a Merry Christmas text.
Right.
I assume at that point in time.
Yeah, no, for those that don't know what they did, basically the NCAA built in basically full shutdown periods for Thanksgiving and for Christmas, where we could have no contact whatsoever with any recruit of any age. So we didn't have any contact or anything like that, and it actually again, it's interesting to see like the NCAA put in legislation to let us be normal people. So, where we can go for like 4 days without having to make recruiting calls or have communication, and we can just enjoy our families and enjoy the holidays, and take that part of our jobs off our plate for at least for a few days and let us be normal. So yeah, no, it was nice.
In that standpoint, no point of normal on there, but you kind of talked a little bit about this one, the transfer portal, right? Like I would assume the average fan assumes all transfer portal out there in college athletic is like what's going on with football right now, right? Everybody's bouncing around. They got the money. I'm getting paid $1 million over here. I'm getting paid. How has the transfer portal for you guys? How for you? For the state, how have you seen it from a baseball standpoint? Maybe not just break down South Carolina, but just from a baseball standpoint, because I would assume the average fan just associates, right, like everything else. They go, oh, college athlete, just like football, full scholarships. You get this guy's getting this NIL, this guy got this car, this guy that. How have you seen it in the baseball world change how things are going?
Well, it's a good question. I think people think that, we just got a big, safe in our offices where we can just pull out, wads of cash, and it's not how, the NIL. First off, when it comes to NIL, like we don't have any say in when it comes to NIL. That's all handled through an NIL collective, and kids can't even go into NIL and receive anything from an NIL perspective until they're actually on campus. So, that's a different ball game altogether. And I will say this, when it comes to NIL, and there's a lot of, on the baseball end, there's some folks that have a decent amount of NIL opportunities, and there's some that don't have as much. But I'll talk a little bit more about the transfer portal. So like the transfer portal is real. It's here. We have to deal with it. It's very, and I'm a fan of the transfer portal. I'm a believer. I think that a majority of the kids in our sport, and I can't speak for every sport, but I think a majority of the kids in our sport that go into the transfer portal are simply going there to look for an opportunity to play. I think a vast majority of the kids are going there. They're out of school. They may even be happy. They may love where they're at, but they know that clock continues to run and I have only a small amount of time to play this game. And I want to go somewhere where I can get an opportunity to get on the field a little bit more. And I don't think a kid should be penalized and have to sit out for a year because his playing circumstances, aren't what he wants them to be, and he wants to explore other options. I never thought it was fair. So I think from that standpoint, it gives kids opportunities. I think where it gets a little bit tough, especially coming from someone who used to be, I don't even know if I want to call it a mid-major, but like a non-Power 5 school. I was the head coach at the College of Charleston for 7 years. I can't imagine when I was coaching at College of Charleston, if we had the transfer portal, what it would have looked like. Just because we had a lot of guys that could have played anywhere in the country, could play at the Power 5 level. Like that's the level that it's like, man, that's got to be pretty frustrating to have the level of players that some of these programs have. You develop those kids, and then next thing you know, kid blows up. They go into the portal because they want to go to a bigger school. I think that's the part of the transfer portal that can be, a tough pill to swallow. And look, mid-major schools are recruiting kids out of the portal as well. They can get a kid from a Power 5 that maybe not be getting a lot of opportunities and can go play for them and get a better opportunity, and it's a win-win. But I think ultimately that's some of the tough things that you see sometimes with the transfer portal is kids that, were recruited by coach did a good job of recruiting a kid. Plays him, develops him, and then the kid, goes into the portal to try to find a bigger school to go play, on a more of a national scene, so to speak. But I think overall, I think 90% of the cases when it comes to the transfer portal are good for the kids. I think where I've seen it now, really kind of going through it for the first time this past summer for me, because I was unable to recruit the summer before with the transition from Clemson to South Carolina. I didn't get the job here until August. So I didn't get a chance to really recruit the portal the summer before. I think the one thing that the transfer portal should not become is an opportunity to just flip your roster. And I think some schools are looking at it. And look, we've recruited a good bit of kids out of the transfer portal. We're hoping with our 24 class to let's build from within and then supplement with the portal, as opposed to, if you're trying to flip your starters that you're losing to the draft every single year out of the portal, that's, I don't know if that's necessarily the right way to go either, because I think it sends the wrong message to the kids you're recruiting out of the high school ranks. Look, it's great to have. You can instantly get better by bringing in an older player that has played a lot of baseball and played at a high level. But I also think too, you will never, ever, ever replace bringing in kids as freshmen and developing from within. That's where your best players are going to come from. 90% of the time, it's going to be homegrown guys that you bring in and develop that have been in your program. You look at our team last year, we had great portal players, but our best arms for the most part were guys that were homegrown. Ethan Petrie, Cole Messina, Braylon Wimmer, those guys were all homegrown guys. I think, you still want to build your team out of high school players and supplement with portal and also with junior college guys.
Yeah, I mean, you even look at, you talked about your team, but you just go, LSU with the national champions. They got the two guys that were the portal guys that got all the love, but the bulk of that lineup were guys that were in there for 3+ years.
Yeah,
and same thing like you talked about with you guys. The couple of the guys get the bigger love, but it's the bulk of the crew. And kind of touch on a little bit what you talked about, some of the guys leaving, like when you were at College of Charleston. I know, I saw Coach Holbrook release that the College of Charleston's added new players to their wall. A lot of those guys might not be on the wall if this transfer portal would have been in effect when you were there, right? Those kids,
Yep.
did a lot of good things over the course of 3-4 years at the school. Well, if they were doing those things, they kept doing it there, maybe get plucked earlier. Now they don't go on a wall. They don't get to, have their name on a wall at a university that they're going to be able to tell their kids or grandkids about down the future. So that it'll be interesting to see how some of those things go with that. But I do agree with you. I do think in baseball, for the most part, it's kids are leaving for the right reason.
Yeah.
We all hear the rumors or the big names or so and so's doing this, but that's not the reality of what really breaks down in the world. Kind of flip the world from the recruiting side of development. Let's talk a little bit about development and how the game is changing / not changing over the course, right? Obviously, all the technology advances that are out there, the analytics, being able to capture all the video, the TrackMan, you get all the sensors on the bats to see, blah, 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 all the things that are out there that are great tools. How, from a development standpoint, have you seen things change or not change from when you kind of first broke into college coaching?
Oh man, that's a really broad question. I'll try to decipher it the best that I can. I mean, the game has changed an awful lot in terms of what we can measure. I think the things that we can measure now and some of the metrics that have came out of all the new technology that we have has given us a better understanding of things than we had in the past. Has it changed the game? I think what has changed about the game is kids are now pitching and trying to hit to the metrics versus the old school, let's throw strikes, work ahead, mix pitches, let's get through a lineup, let's get a starter staying out there for 7 innings. The traditional closer role, the setup guys, like the traditional roles on a pitching staff have changed a little bit because of technology and what the numbers say you should do. Same thing on the offensive side. I mean, I think that there's a lot of pre-contact and post-contact data that are good for measuring things. But ultimately, for me, I just think it's like if you value it, you have the ability to measure it now. So like for me, I try to take all that information, and there's so much information, and some of it I don't even understand. But I try to take like, what do I value as a hitting coach? And how do I apply that using technology? That's really all that I do. I look at things from a swing perspective, which would be pre-contact data. And then I look at things from a hitting standpoint, which would be post-contact data. And I try to blend the two together. What does the pre-contact data tell me about my swing that allows my post-contact data, which is my ability to hit? How can I blend those two things together? How can I take those numbers and that information and provide the player with an opportunity to develop him by looking at it, whether it's through video or a bat sensor or TrackMan, whatever the case may be. But I still think I still think the most valuable thing that you can do as a coach is develop a relationship with your players one-on-one. Like if you can't communicate with the player as a real person, it's not effective, because they're not robots. Like you can't crunch in and punch in the numbers and hit enter and all of a sudden get the results that you're looking for. You still have the tried and true method of just getting in the cage and just grinding with a player and just trying a lot of different things until you find what works for that player. And we have guys that are really into metrics and data. We have guys that are not into it at all. It's my job to coach the player. If the player wants to look at the data and the information, we can. And if they don't, we don't. I try to cater the way I communicate with the player to what works best for the player. I think that the technology allows us to do that. But ultimately, I need to be well-rounded enough to be able to adjust to the player more than anything else, and teach them how to be their own hitting coach. That's my job. And I tell our guys every year, my responsibility as a hitting coach is to make you your own hitting coach.
Right. And that's what I was going to say too, as a coach, right? The hardest thing as a coach is understanding all your players, right? You got, I don't know, say you got 20 hitters. You have to know 20 different personalities and how to get those guys to it. And right, I might be one of your hitters and you go, and I might love the data and the analytics and stuff, but I really don't comprehend it at all. But I
Right.
think I do. And
Right.
having to try to decipher a lot of that stuff. Cause right, there's so much stuff out there, right? Which I think is great, but I can pull up my phone and I can go, well, how am I going to hit today? You
Right.
know, and which I think there's so much information, which is probably better than ever before, just in general, right? The information age we're in, but it's probably hard, makes it hard on you to also comprehend more of your player, understand your players more of what they truly
Right.
understand.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, like I can only imagine trying to talk to some of those guys and they want to understand it, but they can't comprehend it
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. And I think one of the things, probably the most important thing that has changed, in my opinion, is with all the new equipment that we have available to us, we can challenge the players in the practice environment better than ever before. I think that's been the biggest thing that we focus on, is creating challenging environments to develop our hitters. So we're not spending a lot of time talking about swing mechanics. We're spending more time putting them, hitting in the cages off machines at different angles, different pitch types, to create the right types of swings that are going to play in the game. Because ultimately, look, you don't want to bring a knife to a gunfight. You want to be able to go out there and you're facing a Friday night guy in the SEC. That guy's a gunslinger. He's going to come in there. It's going to be 94 to 97 with a power slider and a good changeup. And this guy's going to cut you apart if you're not prepared for facing him. And that's the biggest difference between now and 10 years ago, is the velocity and the spin, the amount of spin, the amount of information when it comes to attacking a hitter's weakness. It's like never before. So the hitter has to be prepared for when he goes out there, for the arsenal that he's going to face. And that's our job, is to create the environment to prepare that hitter for what he's going to see when he goes out there and plays in the SEC.
Right, and that's probably a bigger thing. That's probably from your standpoint when you were right when you got into coaching, especially when you got into the SEC years ago. Right, there was a piece on social media Mike Trout was talking about with somebody when they first got into the league, and the guy was talking about in Major League Baseball, probably the best fastball was 93, 94. It's probably averaging 91, and now it's like 97, right? Like, and I can only imagine the difference, right? When you first started coaching at South Carolina versus now, you were talking about, right, the Friday night, right? Before, it used to be the 92, 93 threw hard.
Oh yeah.
Now 92, 93 is an average arm, across
Yeah.
college baseball. And, that with what you're talking about, the development of trying to create these guys to be prepared to hit in a game,
Yeah.
goes a long way. And that can only, with the technology, and right, you guys can take the TrackMan data and pair it up with a lot of that stuff and get them ready for a game, right?
Yep. And we do. Like we try to create, the pitcher that we're going to face. We take the TrackMan data, we take, the pitch types, and then the percentages of how often they throw those pitches into strike zone or not, so that we can eliminate. If we can eliminate a pitch or eliminate a side of the plate based on what the TrackMan data tells us, we'll do it. But it's also, and this is where the human element comes into this. You can take that information about a pitcher that you're going to face, but you also have to understand that you have to hit to your strength. So, if a guy, throws a high spin fastball and he pitches at the top of the zone, and we have a guy that's a low ball hitter, that may not, from a data standpoint, may not be the best matchup. But I'm going to tell my hitter, hey, man, you got to hit to your strength. Just push the ball down, get a good pitch to hit, and do what you do. You just got to be on time for it. You can't miss it when you get it, because you may only get, one pitching in a bat that's mid-thigh high or down. So it's more about, you take the information, you give it to the players, you try to create an environment to get the player ready for what he's going to see, but you also have to still hit to your strength, in my opinion.
Right, and it still goes back to it, right? It's been around forever. A lot of the stuff we've known, or you saw with your eyes, you just couldn't really maybe put it on a sheet of paper and really justify it, right? You were talking about this, or this, hey, this guy's a sinker baller. You got to get the ball up, right?
Yeah.
You don't need a piece of paper or a TrackMan printout to tell you that. Like, you're in the dugout watching it. You were watching
Right.
the video back in the day. So a lot of the new stuff, right? It's it's still there. I don't even know if you call it new anymore. It's been around for a while now, but it's been there. It can justify it a little bit more. It can, we always talk about, back in the day, you used to go, man, that guy had an invisible ball, invisible fastball, right? Well, now
It
you
looks
got
like
the
it's
spin rate.
rising.
Yeah, now we throw some terms on top of it, kind of make it a little bit easier on there. But it makes it neat for me to be able to see the different way you guys at the college game can take some of these things to help develop your hitters, develop your pitchers, your players in general to be able to have success, right? Because there's the way that we've done it forever, that you did it when you were a little kid, when you did it when you were starting playing, like you still had success, right? Could you have been a better, you never know. You can't go back and look at that, but there's so many ways you guys now can help these players develop. And I think that gets lost a little bit, right? It's not the knock on pro ball or it's not a praise on pro ball, but the things you guys can now do at the college level to get these guys ready, it's better than it's ever been. And it keeps getting better. And, you guys added the third full-time assistant. So you're adding all these staff members to help better your student athletes when it's all said and done.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. And there's just, again, and I think now also with the way, with the state of our game where you do have the transfer portal, you have a lot of information and technology, like you got to be on top of your game now as a coach. Like it's not it's my way or the highway type of environment anymore where this is what I teach in hitting. You're going to do it this way. And that's just how it is. And if you don't, you're not going to play. It doesn't work like that anymore. Like coaches, in my opinion now, it's more peer-to-peer with the players than it is I'm the coach and you're the player, so you got to do everything I tell you to do. It's more a series of conversations and suggestions and observations between me and the player and trying to find the right pieces of the puzzle for that player than it's ever been before. I think that, again, the relationship part is more important than ever before because there's so much information out there. Look, if a kid wants to look up, if I tell a kid, look, your swing is steep and you're not as connected as you need to be, and here's what I think you need to do. If I'm not on point with the information I give that player, what can he do that night? He can go to Instagram or he can go to YouTube and he can look up a bunch of videos on connection in the swing and he can fact check me basically and say, hey, look, I know you tried to get me to do this, but I watched all these videos last night on it and this is what it said. So I got to stay on top of my game as far as the type of information I give a player because they're going to come to me and they're going to fact check me. And I think that, again, that's where making sure that I have a good, strong foundation of what's out there, but yet I still take that information and make it my own and make sure I believe in it. I'm not going to teach a kid something that I don't believe in just because it's out there on Instagram or it's on YouTube or whatever the case may be. But I need to be well-versed enough in different terminology in the swing to be able to help that player and make sure I understand it. Because if I don't, again, they can go right to YouTube, they can go to Instagram, they can find the information if I'm not the guy that can give it to them in the way that they need to hear it.
Right. It kind of goes back to the old ways, right? You got to tell a kid 15 different ways to get one point across sometimes, and trying to learn what's going to help that one kid, right? I can tell Drew something, you can tell him the exact same way, just in a different way, and he understands what you're saying versus I am. And that's part of being a coach and trying to learn those things out and figure it out with that standpoint. So, you guys, it's probably better and easier, but it's also a lot harder these days than it probably ever has to coach a lot of the times. Because to your point, 10, 15, 20 years ago, we're doing it this way. If you don't do it this way, out you go.
Yeah.
And at some point that might be easy, but it might not be the right way to develop guys. But now, you gotta keep your game up and keep rolling with that. But that also makes it good while you're developing those guys and getting that relationship going for it. Now, as you continue that development side, right, is it giving more freedoms to these players to kind of understand and do some things, and which in turns help them? Or is it, right, they go home. You were just talking about earlier before we hit this record button, you got the month of December, you got off, right? Where those guys are home, right? Is that something that now they have the freedoms to go try to do something, or are they staying in contact with you as they're there of some things you've been working on and trying to, because they might have a guy back home that they believe in or they work with or whatever that case may be. Is that a constant communication as well with those guys as they're off home for break?
That's a great question. So what we do is over the course of the fall, we throw a lot at our guys, and we start to develop an understanding of their swing and of their approach to hitting, and we start to individualize that plan for them. Like, it kind of starts out as we throw everything at them. Hey, I want you to try these drills. I want you to focus on this from an approach standpoint. Everybody's going to kind of do this. And then once we start to see what the player's swing does and what certain drills and focuses help that player, we can individualize the plan more for them. That's been the biggest change, I think, over the last 10 to 15 years, is now things are much more individualized to the player versus a whole team concept. And there are some whole team concepts that we still follow more on the approach side to hitting than on the swing side of hitting. So once we individualize that plan and we start to figure out, like, we actually have like individual days on the field in practice now where this group, they all are bucketed into this type of hitter and they have like similar things that they need to do and work on. We'll put those guys in one group. Like, we'll put the buffalo in one group and the deer in the other group, right? Like the guys that are more line drive and bat the ball oriented guys, the twitchy guys, we may have those guys doing certain things. And then we may have the big, strong guys that can hit the ball out of the ballpark doing something completely different. So like, and their drill packages may be different based on what works for them. So like, once we develop those individual days and those individual drill packages for our guys, we send them home with a player plan. So they have a player plan that they follow throughout the course of December. Now, what they do when they're in December, they'll video and send me video all the time. But, they may have a hitting guy that they like to go work with, and that's completely fine. Like, I never feel like, hey, you got to do what I tell you to do and don't go to that. Like, I never do that. Look, if somebody else can get something out of the player that's going to help them, more power to them. It's about the player. At the end of the day, it's about the player. And if we start making it about us as coaches, we're in it for the wrong reasons. We're here to serve the players. That's my responsibility, is to, as a coach, you choose a life of servitude. You are here to serve the players and to serve the program. So so like, if a player can get the information from another coach or from somebody else that's going to help them, more power to them. And again, I think that also in this day and age, what's great about it is there's so much information out there. We can continue to develop as coaches, like never before. Like, you can find information out there, like when it comes to certain aspects of hitting. If I want to study it, I can start to find something new almost every month if I want to. And I may try it with a player and say, you know what, I really like that. So like, I have kind of a skill set and a toolbox at my disposal when it comes to cueing players because of all, the information that I've learned over the years. And, my tool bag's pretty big because I've been doing it for 20 plus years now. But you start to find like what type of cueing and information works best for this type of player. And that's because there's so much information out here to help coaches.
No doubt. At the end of the day, if your player learns something over this break from somebody else and can get a big knock against Clemson on Friday night to help you guys win, more power to them. You know what I mean? It's more power to them. You love them, and it helps you out going on that way. I want to throw a little plug into us and kind of let you run with it a little bit. And it's not just about us as Prep Baseball South Carolina, but you kind of touched on this earlier a little bit from a recruiting standpoint from the players in high school, right? A lot of things guys can do to help themselves, or a lot of resources the players have to help you guys out along the way. And I think in our state, we're pretty, the players are pretty lucky to have multiple avenues to get their names out there. But, if you, advice for a high school player that's kind of doing some things and trying to get their name out, what would you throw at them from a recruiting standpoint of what they should obviously want to do, what to work on, or how to get their name out there more?
Well, I think, obviously I'm on a Zoom call with you guys, and, I'll tell you, and look, me, Sammy, like, I'm going to be dead honest and upfront, and it's just a conversation. Here's what I know about like what you guys do. the thing that I really like about what you guys do is it's a national brand, but it has a regional feel for each state. And the thing that I really like is like, if I need to find out about a player from South Carolina, I can call you. If I need to find out about a player from North Carolina, I can call Brandon Hall. If I need to find out a player from Florida or from Georgia or Minnesota, right? Like I can call anybody, like the regional directors, in PBR for each state and each region, and I can get immediate information about a player that I've either seen online or I saw play at a tournament or I've heard about. I can get information pretty quickly. So I look at like what you guys do, and it's like it's a national brand. You're covering the whole country, but you're doing it in a very regional way that allows us to get better information on players than other organizations. I think that's the thing that you guys do that makes what PBR does unique and very, very valuable is that it's like I can literally say, Sammy, hey man, can you give me I saw this kid play. I don't know anything about him. Can you give me your guy in New York so I can touch base with him? And it's like immediately I can get in touch with the guy from PBR New York. And and I may even be able to just send him a message on Twitter. Hey, can you give me a call? I need to talk to you about a guy. And immediately, we're able to get information about a player. I think that's what makes PBR such a cool operation. And then again, like with the way the recruiting is now, August 1 is so important. The Futures Games. What an unbelievable event. Like, you walk into the Futures Games and like you're not watching a bad game anywhere. And all the kids are what? They're not committed. Right. So I mean, it's like this is like a gold mine. Like all these kids are good, nobody's committed. The ballparks are side by side. It doesn't get any better than that. So it's not like this massive tournament going on with where we can't cover it all. It's like everything's right there. They're all uncommitted and they're all good. It's pretty good. And so I think it's simple. It's a very simple process. And I think that the fact that you guys have a regional director, and I don't even know if that's the right name for it, for each state, you have a really good feel for your state, So like when the rankings come out, people complain about rankings all the time. Well, his national ranking is this or he's not ranked. You guys have a pretty good feel for it because you cover one state. So I think from that standpoint, it's like that the information is accurate. The communication is really good, and it makes our jobs a whole lot easier.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you saying that. It makes it, for us, it makes it good that you can, you guys can pick up a phone and, call us, and the same thing on our end, right? We do the same thing. People ask all the time, but you brought up the rankings. There'll be times we'll reach out to y'all. Hey, this kid's committed to you guys. You guys seen this guy more. Where do you guys have him? Right. And you guys are sitting there watching him too. So we put some information in that, which makes it, it carries a little bit more weight. Because I can call the travel ball coach or I can call their high school coach, and we know what they're going to tell them. Sure. I might call you on a player that's committed somewhere else, and I know you recruited him, saw him. You'll tell the truth about what he is. So it makes our job easier. But it makes it neat for us. And I know, it took enough of your time today, but it makes it neat for us to be able to get our college coaches in the state. Obviously, a lot of this stuff we cover, the bulk of it is the high school, the amateur side. But we definitely appreciate you coming on and talking some baseball here in the great Palmetto State and little old South Carolina and trying to keep making this thing up. So we want to thank you and wish you guys nothing but the best of luck this upcoming spring. And if I find out you do have that NIL safe in your office, I'm only 10 minutes down the street. I'm gonna come crack it.
Sounds good. I'll give you a bag of cash when you come by and see me.
Done deal.
That's a joke, by the way, guys.
We're gonna put it on there. Don't worry.
I don't have a bag of cash. Make sure you tweet that out too, by the way.
We're still recording, so don't worry.
I know.
We'll lead with it.
That'll be the start of it.
There you go. Yeah, just make it the start of it.
Come on by. I got you a bag of cash.
Yeah, we got a bag of cash.
Perfect. Well, Coach Lee, we definitely appreciate it. I know taking enough of your time. You guys what do y'all start Monday?
We start on Monday. Yeah, first day of class on Monday. So pretty fired up. We go to Fort Jackson, take the boys over to Fort Jackson, have some fun, some team building, little conditioning. I typically try to join in on that, and then I'm pretty much cannot move for 3 or 4 days, but it'll be a lot of fun getting kicked off with all the guys over in Fort Jackson on Monday.
Good. Just have an old man Billy make sure he don't get buried underneath somebody.
Well, my favorite saying is one of the drill sergeants told our team last year. He said, "Guys, we do things 2 ways. We do them right, or we do it again." And he kept yelling that over and over. You either do it right or you do it again. We do things 2 ways here. And I was like, man, I'm going to use that. I love it. So, I'll get a kick out of that. When the first time I hear that, I'll get a good kick out of that when we go over to Fort Jackson on Monday.
You're prepared for it. It'll be like right away.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, we'll let you get out of here. So we appreciate you hopping on and enjoy your last weekend of freedom here.
Appreciate what you do. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, from all of us here at Prep Baseball, South Carolina, we hope you have a great week. We'll see you soon with another college coach.